Hey, I'm Russell Leeds.
And I'm Sue Gray.
And welcome to the Property Investors Podcast. On this week's show, we're going to be talking about how in 2024, 2025, and even beyond, you can secure rent-to-rent deals from landlords. Now, I know this is something that you've done quite a bit of, getting rent-to-rent deals. So I suppose, first of all, how would you sum up what a rent-to-rent was for anyone that's listening to this that's like, I don't even know what a rent-to-rent is?
Right. So it's where you rent a property and you pay the going rent, but then you rent it out for more. So if you just rented it out for the same, there'd be no point in doing that.
No, that would be just a
silly.
big
It'd just
headache.
be a lot of time wasted.
A lot of work, a lot of effort.
For nothing.
For nothing, yeah.
Right. But what you can do is you can take a normal rental property and then maybe use it for serviced accommodation or for a HMO.
Or social housing.
Something that will get you more rent. So you're just the middleman, really. You're just renting out and renting it the other end.
Sure. But surely, is that not subletting?
It would be if you pretended you were living in it and rented it out on a normal AST.
Yeah.
And then rented it out to your mate on an AST. Yes. So you couldn't really have an AST here and then you let it out on an AST.
Yeah, because a lot of people say, subletting's legal and all this, but it would only be subletting if you used a contract that said it was subletting, right?
Correct. And subletting isn't illegal. But you need permission from the landlord. So
it's not illegal, but it's breach of the contract, isn't it?
if it's in the contract,
Yeah. So if you're using an AST
you can take it out. You could do a rent to rent literally on an AST.
and just take it out
And
of the
take
contract.
it out. Take anything out you don't like. It wouldn't look much like an AST at the end of it. But some landlords, because they're only, and I wouldn't advise this, by the way, but some landlords, because they're so tunnel visioned and have to have an AST, that's all they want. Providing it doesn't say subletting, whatever the contract says, is it?
Yeah. So it's not, yeah, exactly. It's contractual law. You're not like going to go to prison.
It's not illegal. It's not criminal.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that makes sense. So basically, you're renting the property, you're renting it out to someone else at a higher amount, which is actually very similar to a lot of businesses. Like if you look at most hotels, to what it's before, I know Premier actually do own some of their buildings, but a lot of hotels don't own any of their buildings. The Four Seasons, for example, I don't think own any of theirs, and they're just renting the buildings and then renting it out as service accommodation. So it's basically the same as that, isn't it? So you mentioned earlier that if you're sort of pretending that you're living in the property, I know a lot of people do that when they're speaking to landlords, is they don't tell the landlord up front that they're planning on doing it for rent to rent. Do you think that's a mistake? And if so, why?
I wouldn't do it because I feel so silly going round and saying, trying to convert it from it's to me. Some people do that.
Because you've heard stories in the newspapers and stuff, rent-to-rent deals that have gone wrong, where literally they just do pretend they're living in it. So they go, I want to rent it for me to live in. They go get a normal AST, probably says in the contract you can't rent it out.
I think that as investors, you don't need to lie. I would never recommend it. Secondly, if you do get caught, it just gives everyone a bad name. And then when someone who's been on Samuel Leeds and your training goes in professional, if they've had a cowboy previously, they're not going to want you now, and you could be really good.
But they wouldn't even know, would they, that it was until afterwards, and then you're just going to get kicked out, and it's like. Well,
yeah, I just wouldn't recommend it. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to take this seriously. It's a proper business, and we're adults, and we don't want to do stuff like that. Also, let's suppose you're using it for a HMO. You've got a duty of care now to your people that are living there. If it's an SA and you've got 6 months worth of down the line bookings, which hopefully you have, and then you get found out for that, it's making your own business so crumbly and weak. It's rubbish.
It's a rod for your own back.
It is, yeah.
So,
however, I will just say, on the subject, I have had mentoring calls where people have said they've just got suckered in and sort of somehow or other pretended it's for them because they've chickened out of dropping the bombshell of what they are. And they've gone to the viewing and then they've rung me and gone, I've told the landlord that my mum's going to live in it. What shall I do? And I said, well, just let your mum live in it. But no, my mum doesn't want to live in it. Well, maybe then you could say, it's not really suitable for my mum, but I could use it for this. That's what some people have done. Again, I would never do it. I'd never recommend it.
No, better off just to be upfront from the beginning. Now,
be professional.
The reason people do it, I think, is because when you are upfront from the beginning, you turn a lot of landlords off straight away, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we don't do corporate lets, and then people are like, oh, okay, how do I find a landlord then that is interested in a corporate let? Or so, how would you go about then if you are going to be upfront? What's the best way to position it so that you're...
Yeah. All right, good question. So just imagine for a second that you are a normal person and you get a phone call from...
I've got to imagine that. Flipping it. It's going to be hard.
Good imagination. And somebody rings you up and they say, hiya, it's Sue from Double Glazing R Us. Before they've even spit any more words out, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking I'm not interested in double glazing R Us.
Right. You're thinking...
The first thing I want to do is get off the phone.
Right.
Yeah.
So...
I'm waiting for a gap so I can go, not interested, thank you, and then I hang up before they have a chance.
Or you don't, you just dump.
I actually normally...
The only downside of that is that they always ring back.
I normally say, not interested, thanks, and hang up.
Yeah. Sorry, can I sort with that? Or something. Right. So when I used to be in I used to sell insurance years ago. And previous to that, I was a hairdresser. Same me, but as a hairdresser, people would, hi, coming in. Do you want a coffee? They were nice to me. But when I was an insurance salesperson, same me, and they're like, oh, no, really horrible to me, right?
Yeah.
So the first few seconds of what you say on a phone call can make them dump the phone or be nice to you. So it's really important that you say something to make them like you and keep you on the phone.
And makes them think that it's not going to waste their time.
Right. So I think landlords, agents, everyone, they're all human beings, aren't they? And they like other human beings. So when I ring up, instead of acting like a robot, hi, it's Sue from Properties R Us. Did you do company lets? No. I want to go on as a human being. So the first mode that I have is I speak their language, I make them feel relaxed. Now,
English.
Who are they expecting to ring for these properties?
They're expecting someone that's a tenant that's looking for somewhere to live in themselves.
So my first mode is I'm a tenant. Now, I don't say it, I don't lie, I just act like one. So I don't go, hi, it's Sue. I don't even say my name because people don't do that. If you were ringing to live in it, you just go, hey, I've just seen a house on Station Road, wouldn't you?
No, I'd go, hello, it's Russell from Properties R Us.
Would you?
No.
Boom.
Yeah, I'd lose the deal immediately.
Right.
No, I know what you mean. I think this is very true actually with sales as well, because I always say with our sales teams, I always say, don't let them know that you're a salesperson, because the second that you think you're a salesperson, you hear the call centre background, it's just like, want to vomit, want to throw up. So ring them up as a customer service person. You know, like, well, let's say, for example, you're calling someone because they took an action on your website, they just bought a book or something. You ring them up and you're like, hey, it's Russell here. I noticed you bought a book. I'm just ringing to let you know it's going to move you in the next. So you're ringing them up as a customer service with this. Same type of thing. You're not customer service, but you're ringing them up as a tenant.
You want them, the minute they answer the phone, you want them to be warm and friendly towards you.
Yeah.
And to like you.
You want them to be wanting to sell to you. Because at the end of the day, it's also a sales call. In a way, you're the salesperson because you're selling them on doing rent to rent. But as far as they're concerned at this point, they're the salesperson because you're a prospective tenant.
Right. So my first thing is to go, hiya, I've just seen a property on Station Road in Walsall. Is it still available, please?
Yeah.
And then they're lovely. And they go, oh, yes. How can I help? Or they might even go, do you want a viewing? Now, I'm going to have to tell them it's a company let.
Well, they'll often ask, won't they? Is the property for you? Do you ever get that?
We'll go through that.
All right.
But at this point, normally, they just go, yes, how can I help? And they feel so relaxed because you sound so normal. And then I'll say, when are the viewings? Because nowadays, they tell you when the viewings are. The block viewings didn't used to be. But that's what they tend to do now.
Or group viewings.
Right.
Got 50 people coming on Saturday morning at 10.
But if they're not group viewings, they'll say, well, we can do any afternoon next week but I want that because, do you know why? Because later on when I close, I want to be able to go, anyway, I can make Wednesday at 10. So I want to know beforehand. I don't want to be scrappling around to find that after.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
So, hiya, just in a property on Station Road in Water. Is it still available, please? Yeah, how can I help? Okay, bro, I'd like to make a viewing. When are the viewings? Next Wednesday at 10, right? So now I've got to go into my second mode.
Do you ask questions about the property, by the way?
No.
You don't? So you don't sort of say, what's the general state? Or
No.
No. You look like disgusted
I'm
at the thought.
disgusted.
Come on,
I've heard so many people, when I'm listening to their call, they love to play me their calls with agents, and I sit there writing notes. This is what happens. Is it furnished or unfurnished? Well, you've got the photograph, and it says, dummy. That's what I'm thinking if I was the agent. So, is it furnished or unfurnished? Hang on a minute. Stacey, you know this... First of all, that just cuts into your patter.
Right.
The idea of asking questions is so they go, yeah. You don't go, is it furnished or unfurnished? Do you know what I mean? I've even heard this.
Here's a question then.
Let me just say this because you'll love it.
Go on.
Does it come with parking or not? Oh, I don't know. Does it, you know that property on Station Road, has it got parking? No. Oh, perfect. How is it perfect? And if it's perfect to have no car park, why did you ask? It's just making you look like a dummy, isn't it?
You could say, okay. Okay.
But why did you ask? And now, why do you want the viewing? It's stupid.
All right, let me ask you another question then.
That's it.
Here's a question then. If you're asking as a tenant at this point, if you were ringing about, and I know you own property, but you're also a tenant. I've been a tenant for many years. I don't know the answer to this, by the way. You've recently looked at a new house, right?
Did I ask if it had parking?
Not that question.
No.
Did you ask other questions?
No, did I help?
Nothing at all?
No, and I didn't tell them my name either. I just said, I've just seen a property on Lane.
Can I get a viewing?
Can I come for a viewing? It looks great.
Because you've already looked enough that you know the answers to all those questions.
Yeah, and I'm going to look a dick now, aren't I?
That's why you're ringing. Yeah, that makes sense.
And if they don't know, if Stacey in the office, I don't know, I've not actually seen it. Hang on, Barbara, it's rubbish.
Yeah, okay, yep.
Do not ask any questions. If you want to ask a question, then ask it like this. It comes furnished, is that correct? Yes. Right now you don't look a dummy, you're just confirming.
What about if it's like, how long's it been on?
Why?
Because if the property's been on for a while...
Thing is, right, the minute you break... I see this whole game as, to put it into Samuel speak, as a boxing match. The minute you get your guard down, the minute you wobble, you're dead. They will kill you. You want to wobble them. And I'll show you how to wobble them.
All right.
Right? So do not ask any dummy questions.
Okay.
Number one.
Yep.
And then, so just to recap, seen the property, ding, ding, ding. Is it available? Yes. When are the viewings? Wednesday. Great. And now we're on to phase 2.
Where either they're going to raise, because this will be the point now where they're going to say,
is it for you?
Yeah.
Is it for you? Yes. It is for you, isn't it? Is it for you to live in? No.
Okay.
So if they say, is it for you? I'll either say, yep, and then carry on. A bit like if I buy a BRR, I'm not going to live in it.
But still for
me,
you.
it's in my company. Oh, is that what you meant? Oh, sorry. Right. Either that or favourite of mine is, oh, I'm glad you asked me that. Boom, into the story.
Okay. So now you're going to go into your story.
Right.
Here's where
I never answer the question with a yes or a no, is it for me? Unless I just go, yep, into the story.
This is where I see a lot of people screw it up, right? Because...
Sorry.
That's all right. They are like almost apologetic about like... they're acting as though the landlord is doing them a massive favour.
I know.
And it's like, do you do corporate lets? Like that's kind of the mindset going in. And I always say, before you even make the phone call, you've got to, if you're selling anything, you've got to be sold on what you're selling.
Yeah.
Right? So before you make the phone call, you've got to be thinking in your mind, I don't know where else you'd think it. But you're thinking in your mind that if they turn you down, they're a freaking idiot. Because it just makes total sense.
You go in expecting it.
Yeah, of course you do it to me. Why would you do it for me? And then I get them to make a list of all the good reasons. Why would giving it you on a rent-to-rent deal be better than the alternative, which is renting it to a tenant? Well, number one...
We talked about that last time.
Did we? Well, then what are the reasons?
Well, we talked about the right building, remember?
The right what?
How it's going to be difficult letting out to tenants.
Oh, the renters. Oh, yeah, the renters' rights. I know what you mean now. Yeah. So, like, for example, if they rent it to a tenant and the tenant doesn't pay, it's going to take them God knows how long to get them out.
And court.
Go through court now and getting rid of the no fault eviction. So yeah, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. What else? Well, are they going to get? You're going to get cleaners in twice a week. Are they going to keep it in such good condition? And. So you make the big list. So when you ring them up, in your head, you're thinking, if they don't rent to me, they're an idiot, because this is a really good deal. And I think that changes your confidence. Forget the script.
Oh, yeah.
Because you could say the same script, but you say it. I also had it, I remember, do you remember that time when everyone was having to show proof of funds just to book a viewing? Mm-hmm. The property market had gone so mad. And people said to me, how do you deal with that? Because they didn't have the proof of funds. And I was like, you know what? I don't know whether you did, be interested to know. I never got asked.
I did.
Did you?
Well, interesting. If you say you're buying it for cash, then you get asked.
Okay.
If you say, I haven't decided yet, I might remortgage a property, I might buy it for cash, then they don't ask.
I never got asked anything, how I was buying it. I just booked the
It's
viewings.
because they go in as the big I am, going for cash. And they're like, okay then, let's see it.
Right.
That's what it is.
I was thinking it was because, and maybe it's because of that, I was thinking it's because the estate agent could sense whether it was their confidence or whatever, something was off with them. Probably a lack of confidence, my guess is. And when I was ringing up, because I was just like, for me it was chill.
Right.
They didn't ask me.
Were you buying for cash?
Mixture.
If you say mixture, it's fine. If you say, I don't know, I haven't decided yet, they won't ask you for it. But if you go in as the big I am...
Or you sound like you're out your depth.
Yeah, and they don't believe you. They can sense it.
So don't be too big I am-y, but be confident in what you're doing. All right. So
now, let me just carry on saying something.
Go on.
That I used to think that it was a bit naff writing it down. Because I used to think, surely I don't have to do that.
Writing what down?
My script or anything. Until I listened to The Wolf of Wall Street's book on selling. And he made an absolutely phenomenal point. And he said, do you think that all these actors like Leonardo and all that, do you think they just make it up? Or do you think that they've got scripts? Well, why have they got scripts? Because that's the best thing to say. In the cold light of day, that script has been written. Oh, but it sounds like don't just learn it and say it proper.
Just say it say it not like a script.
Yeah.
The reason people don't know scripts is because they tend to, hello, this is Russell Leeds here calling, and you read it. It sounds like you're reading it. It sounds terrible.
Yeah.
But if you say the right things, remember Craig used to sell the part, and it was literally, you'd hear him selling it. And it was the exact.
Did he read it?
He didn't by the end because he'd learnt it off by heart.
Yeah.
But he used to. He obviously originally.
Well, my story that I'm sharing right now and what I say, I had that written down word for word, even the word hire at the beginning. Every word was thought through and calculated. And I'd change it. How are you going to do that to the best of your ability while you're on the phone? There's a dog in the background. You're trying to think what they're saying. You're putting yourself on the back foot. You need to know that. And if you can't remember it, I just wouldn't even attempt it, write it down. End of story.
Yeah.
So.
And just write it in a way that's a spoken way.
Yeah.
Rather than writing it like you would a book.
At least write the first sentence down. At least, so that you're confident when you go in.
Yeah. All right. So you write it down.
Right.
What do you write down?
Hire. Yes.
Yeah.
I've just seen a property on station. What exactly I said, I write every single word down. And then it's got, if they say this, and then I've written it down, answer. Eventually, like now, I don't need to write it down, but...
Because you'll learn it.
You learn it, yeah. Anyway, so after you've done your
So
initial...
I've just said to you then, are you going to live in the property yourself?
I'm glad you've asked me that. And now you go into your story.
Which is?
Well, So to get your story, you need to think through, firstly, who am I and why do I want it? Secondly, who's it for? Okay? So the first one I got in this method, and I came up with this method because I was sick of people going, "Oh, come and I was sick of it. I just thought, I'm fed up with that. So I decided to try a new tack. And I drove up to the Peak District, where I love, which I love. I put on I was in my walking clothes, my walking boots, my walking hair, everything.
What's your walking hair?
This, straighter version. And I walked in, because I was in my walking stuff. And I said,
you walked into an agent?
I walked in, yeah.
Right.
I'd got a property in mind in Eam. And I said, hiya. I said, I'm a walker. My husband's a walker. We love the area. We come up here all the time. We're looking for a property that we can rent for us when we're up here, for our friends and family, and we know other walkers and, stuff like that. Do you think this property in Eam would be suitable? Because we like it. And she said, no, the landlord does not want that kind of thing. They want a family. Has anyone ever heard that? Lol. So I said, okay, no problem. Well, have you got another one? You know Carver, the one in Carver, Folds, that you stayed in nearly.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. I know that well, actually.
You do, don't you? Because you drove all the way there. It hadn't been cleaned.
Yeah, I do. And then we literally got there about late as well.
Midnight.
It was about midnight. Got there and we were like, oh. And you were like, oh, I'll get someone out. We're like, yeah.
Cleaner let us down.
We'll
bad.
leave it. We just drove home.
That was it. So anyway, that one.
Great property.
It was. It did really
It
good.
actually was a nice property.
Lovely.
To be in your defence, I think we went to sort of try it out very early on. You hadn't
been
properly
sorted.
rented it out yet. Yeah.
No.
Did that ever happen again?
No, not with that one.
Did you change cleaners?
No, we didn't actually. We just gave him a bit of a
telling off.
telling off.
Right, okay.
But we have had it with other ones and we've had to sack them. Occasionally happens, but anyway. So, so I said, have you got any others then that might work? And she went, hang on a minute. And then she came up with that one. I said, well, I'm here. So what about if you arrange the viewing now? I'd got a contract in the car, went along for the viewing, like 20 minutes later, I was at the viewing, had a chat with the landlady. She was really nice. She was happy. Signed the contracts there and then. And we literally, an hour after going in the agents, we'd got that. And that was my story. And that was before I was a mentor.
I think that is a really good point. If you're looking for somewhere where you actually do want to stay yourself, and I would recommend anyone that's got an SA unit staying in their own properties as well.
Definitely.
Because you learn so much about a place when you stay in it rather than just relying on reviews, which is I suppose your other way of getting feedback. You learn so much how good a job. Don't tell the cleaner it's you going in. Just it's someone going in.
Oh, yeah, we do that.
Yeah. So then you see exactly the job that they're doing. You notice little faults of it or little things you want to improve. I would say stay at least, say, 3 or 4 times a year, sort of dotted throughout the year, go and stay, which also gives you your story.
Yeah.
Then you can go somewhere like you've done, Peak District. You like the place anyway. You want to stay there anyway.
I lived there
You've got
in
all
the
these
end.
little holiday homes across the country that you actually genuinely want to go and stay in and enjoy staying in. So that helps with your story and it helps you spot checking as you go. I like that.
But then when you and Samuel asked me to become a mentor, I found that story didn't work like in the middle of Warsaw. Because people don't go as walkers, do they? Let's face it.
No,
So-
or as tourists.
No, or as anything, well, contractors. So then that made me think, I was telling people the walker story and how I got my first rent to rent, but it didn't fit for them.
For their places. And
So then I was asking, right, so what's your involvement with property? So the first thing is I'll try and wheedle out a story out of them that's true. So let's supposing their dad has got 2 rental properties and I'm just giving you an example. Their granddad had one. I come from a family of property.
yeah.
Hiya, I come from a family of property, blah, blah, blah. So, and then who's going to be staying there? So people go, it doesn't really matter because it's going on Airbnb. Yes, but it does matter
To them.
to the agent. Because one of their questions is who's going to be living in
So
it.
who you need to know ahead of time, rather than just, we'll whack it on and see who comes. It's have a target market in mind.
So is it contractors? If it is, you need parking. So it does matter. So you think through who's going to be staying there. Now, next step. Let's say it's contractors. What I would do is get some contractors that you know and say, if I had another property, would you be interested? Yes. Right. So I've got somebody called Rob Jones who has a contracting company and stays in mine. So I can truthfully say, I've just been talking to Rob from Jones Property and contractors, and he needs more houses. And
Contractors are us.
Contractors are us. And therefore, I'm looking on the basis of that. So that's my story now. So one thing I do on the academy, and I love doing, is helping people.
Come up with a story.
Yeah. Now, they've absolutely got it when they ask this question, does it need to go on Airbnb? Because they're saying, my life, I need this because this is going to be brilliant. All the hospital staff will be staying. And they've bought it so much.
That they actually think that it might sell out literally on its own like that.
Yes. And at that point, I know, yes, it does need Airbnb and all that, but at that point, I know they've got it.
And often, the majority of your bookings will come that way. The Airbnb and Booking.com will fill in the gaps, won't they?
In reality,
no.
You need Airbnb.
I thought you said you got it.
You've got it, but you've got it. You've got what it's for. You've realised
But
it.
even Airbnb, a lot of the bookings will be contractors, for example. If you're set up, if you're in Warsaw, right?
Yeah.
And you're set up for contractors, I know you did have a deal with Rob who was sending people your way. But I bet the other people that booked it, I bet a lot of them are contractors, weren't they?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what happens a lot. If you've got your own website with the name of your property, they'll book it through Airbnb and then they'll go, can we book direct? So we'll have like a week of Airbnb and then they'll contact us direct and then book for 3 months.
Yeah.
So you're not paying Airbnb fees.
Worth having a look round where you are as well. Like in Lichfield, I get loads of people, because it's right next to the cathedral, that are singing at the cathedral or something to do with the cathedral. There's loads and loads of people, which sounds quite a nice... It doesn't suddenly sound like, we're whacking it on Airbnb.
No.
It's like we've got a lot of guests that do stuff for the cathedral,
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
So if I was telling your story, and let's say you hadn't got any, let's say you've got no Airbnbs, but you knew that information about the area, which I would tell you to go and find out, then I'd say, right, go and phone the cathedral, speak to whoever it is, Jenny, and say, is it okay if I send you some of my property, my next property when I get it? Jenny says yes. Now you phone the agent. I've just been talking to Jenny from the cathedral, and they were saying that people are coming in a lot, they need places to stay, they don't always want to be in a hotel, they might want more of a home from home. So on that basis, can I come for the viewing next Wednesday?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. And what are you looking for then? You're finding these deals. Where are you looking? Are you speaking to... You mentioned agents. You've also mentioned landlords. Where is the best place to... Are you literally just looking on Rightmove, ringing up agents? Or are you looking on places like Gumtree? Or what's your top tips for finding these potential leads?
Okay, so a lot of people like going direct to landlords. I prefer agents, but that's just my personal... I get on well with agents. I find it easier. Also, agents are the ones with all the stock. I think it's because I'm impatient, to be honest with you. And I'll be ringing landlords, I can't wait for that to happen. And then I'll go to little agents and then they haven't got any stock. I think, who's got the big stock? Big agents, right, how do I get good at getting them off them?
And you mentioned you went in person. I've heard a lot of people on the academy and stuff talk about the phoning up is okay. But when you actually go in, if you're persistent and go in a few times, if you've got anything, you mentioned, you said about that one, they were like, that landlord doesn't like it. Have you got any others that would, no, not really. Go back to the same agent next week. Hey, I came in last week, I mentioned this one.
Yeah.
Have you got any other landlords? No, I don't think I have. Next week, go back in. So you're going in all the time and eventually they're just like, Yes, actually, this one.
Do you know
works.
Samuel Johnson on the
do,
academy?
yeah.
Right. So Samuel Johnson, he had, let's say, he came over from India. You know, like people make excuses. He could have been a person.
He had all the excuses in the book, yeah.
Okay. So what he did was go into agents, just on that point. He pestered the living daylights out of the agents to the point where one agent said, "Do you want your own desk in the corner? Because you're in here so much." Eventually, they had a property that was sticking. Should we just let him have it?
Should we let Samuel Johnson have it?
Just let him have it. So he had it, did a great job with it. And I mean, you know, his business with rent to HMOs is through the roof now, just by persistent.
Because then, if you do get him with an agent and you get one and you've done a good job, and that was really easy renting it to. Suddenly, they'll start bringing them you before they even bother putting them up.
Exactly.
So, before we put it up, this one would work for Samuel
Easier
Johnson.
for them, cheaper for them.
Yeah.
One thing you have to note with agents is, again, speaking their language, is what does an agent want and what does an agent not want? So there's no point saying to an agent, the landlord won't need it to have it managed, because they're the agent. They're going to be, we don't do company lets.
Yeah.
So
we'll manage it for you for free. No,
for
thanks.
5 years, and you'll never get a penny again. No, thanks.
Yeah.
So if I phone an agent, I might say, who manages it? Is it you, or is it the or is it the landlord direct? And then if it's them, act pleased. Oh, it's us. Okay, great. So what do you do normally? Come over every 3 months, or so you're including them in the deal.
Mm.
If it's the landlord, they go, oh, it's the landlord. We're just letting it out for the landlord. Okay, no problem. Is he a nice guy? Yeah. Oh, brill. So either way, it's brill.
What about if they say no, he's a dick?
They don't, though, do they?
Well, it sounds like it might be one of those dumb questions.
It's brill then, isn't it?
Park. He's a dick. Brilliant. Excellent.
No, it's... The point of what I'm saying is you don't want the agent to feel that you're coming and robbing them of their business.
No.
They're still going to get their fee off the landlord.
Yeah. And if I suppose if they're managing it, that's fine as well, isn't it? Because they'll just be managing it.
Yes and no. The other thing to remember is that they get paid a cut off all the work that goes on there. Like the maintenance. They might get 10%. So you could say, okay, so, you know, like if they say no and you're now selling it, the idea, and you came out with those things at the beginning, we look after it. You could say to the agent, do you have a maintenance team? You know, we could go through you. Now you're not cutting them out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. All right, cool. Any other top tips before we wrap up then?
Billions.
Billions.
Join the academy.
Yeah. Well, actually, they could join the academy, or they come to the rent-to-rent crash course and learn all about how to get rent-to-rents. Just £1. Spend the full day with our team. Samuel's there running it for £1. What can you buy for £1 nowadays? With inflation, not a lot.
No. I mean...
Freddo bar?
The craziness is that, you know, I've been a mentor on the academy now for 3 years. But in the first 2 months, I just thought, I can't believe this. It's a real challenge being a mentor on the academy, because the students are just so good, so quick. And that was what blew me away, in the first stages of being a mentor. It's like they're just doing it. And I think somebody summed it up as 1 year on the academy is like 15 years of doing it yourself.
Yeah, I haven't heard that before, but that's probably about right.
It is right.
There's two ways that you can pay for your education. You can pay for it, or you can pay for it in mistakes.
Well, it was the same kind of ratio when I was at Bible college. Bible college was equivalent, each year was equivalent to about 15 years of knowledge. It was just jammed you full. And you got questions answered and everything. And it's a similar thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense.
So,
makes a lot of sense. Well, hopefully you guys found that useful. If you are looking to get rent-to-rents, it's a brilliant way of making a pretty good, I would say not totally passive, because there is a bit of work going into management, but you can set it up to pretty much almost passive with Rent to SA. And you don't need a lot of money to get started. So it's a fantastic way of making a lot of money through property, starting with no money. Hopefully you found those tips useful. I've been Russell Leeds.
And I've been Sue Gray.
And we'll see you next week.